Okay, well, I've been charged with doing a quick rundown of August. And
serve your sentence.
Yeah. So this is going out over Christmas, right? So I hope you enjoy this over Christmas, looking back at the summer. But anyway, it seems to me, looking back at August, it was actually quite a good month for guests, having guests on. There's quite a few guests. Earlier on the 1st of August, we had the MP Andrew Bridgen on, who's been on more than once. And so, that's it's always good to have him on, because, of course, he actually does good work. He's actually, as an MP, got at least some small amount of power. He gets a vote in Parliament, and he's sort of a staunchly anti-vaccine guy, isn't he? Did you see, not in August, but in a month or two ago from now, that he did a speech and tried to have a vote about looking into all the anti-vaccine stuff, and like hardly anyone turned up. Like, the whole chamber was just empty.
Well, worse than that, the BBC, who have BBC Parliament, which is a TV channel that just streams Parliament so the public can watch it, decided that kind of impartiality wasn't their job anymore, and just shoved loads of warnings over it that Andrew Bridgen was wrong, and then have now recently had to retract all of that. So
disgusting.
Yeah. Clearly an enemy of the elite.
So the Honourable Mr. Bridgen is a warrior. I wish him absolutely all the best. Anyway, he came on, talked to Carl. So that was it. Hopefully we'll have him on again at some point. He obviously, the Tories chucked him out, and he went to Lawrence Fox's party, didn't he? Reclaim, which is a bit odd, but there you go. I hope he gets re-elected at the next general election, but I fear not. But we'll see. Good luck to him. Genuinely good luck to him.
Yeah.
On the 2nd of December, there was a piece there that was, I thought was worth sort of mentioning again or going over, is the sheer volume of Turkish barbers that we see. It's a funny thumbnam there.
Yeah. So you mean August? 2nd of August.
Yeah, what did I say?
I think December. But...
Oh, no, sorry, yes. On the 2nd of August, we did a bit. I think, was it your bit? Was it?
Might have been Harry's.
Okay.
But I don't recall. But we had a police report that came out that just said, hey, those Turkish barbers? Yeah, we think they're fronts for people trafficking and drug trafficking. And everyone who obviously lives in the real world who has had all those weird barbers set up around them are like, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
No one's in them.
Yeah,
they're all run by Kurds.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. Yeah, they say they're Turkish, and they're usually not. They're Kurdish, or they're Syrian, or they're Afghan, or they're anything.
And they're usually Iraqi Kurds, or Syrian Kurds, or Iranian Kurds. Like, very few actual Turkish Kurds.
Yeah. Very, very few Turkish. But it's because it just sounds a bit nicer to a normie that they're Turkish. It's a bit less sort of foreign and alien than I'm from Kurdistan.
Well, if you're from
Iraq.
Yeah, if you're from Iraqi Kurdistan. I mean, a few of the conversations I had with those people, and I used to go to those barbers before, I was just like, oh, the hell with this, I'm finding somewhere. I don't care where it is. I ended up finding a Brazilian place. Quite nice.
All right.
But one of them, he was telling me about how he remembers, because he was there during ISIS rising up. And I was like, oh, yes, what was it like? And he just went, I don't want to talk about it. I was like, okay, were you against them or something? And he was like, it's not, they don't exist. I was like, what? He said, they're not real. Yeah, it was like, anyway, put that razor down, mate. I'm happy with the hair.
Yeah.
Did he shave you?
No, I've not been back.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like Kurdistan. It's like around Mosul or northern Iraq. It's like, isn't that ISIS territory? Like
their capital.
Their capital, yeah. Like Raqqa, Mosul, around where ancient Nineveh was. Yeah, it's one of the worst hotspots in the world. And now a lot of them are here running quote unquote barber shops
with no customers.
And yet the people that run them seem to quite often park outside in like top of the range BMWs and Mercedes and things like that. There's in Swindon, there's loads of them, like a dozen, 2 dozen, I don't know. Sometimes they're next door to each other.
Yeah,
it's like obviously it's a front for money laundering, drugs, people smuggling, whatever it is.
I can think of 7 at least within 5 minutes walking distance.
Right? Yeah. Easily. And across the whole of Swindon, it's just loads. It's so obvious. And yet our authorities don't seem to care. Don't seem to do anything about it. They're complicit in it on some level, of course.
What is there on the thumbnail? What's going on?
That's a man in San Francisco, I believe.
Yeah.
I don't need to say more.
I feel like on that, I feel like when you've got a big enough homeless population, they just relieve themselves on the street. And if it's a big enough problem, then you just get a turd apocalypse.
Yes.
Or a punami, or whatever you'd want to call it, of just it's ridiculous.
I remember in this segment, was it you had a link, a satellite link or a satellite picture of San Francisco and the location of each of the pieces of excrement on the map?
There's various maps set up by tech nerds who wanted to find out how bad it was, and now kind of regret making that map.
Isn't the map just full?
Yeah, there's no point in making a map. It's literally just take out a felt tip pen that's brown and just shade in the city, and you've got your map.
Man, because back in the day, in the I don't know, the 60s, 70s, or even 80s, or whatever, San Francisco had a reputation for being lovely, being really, really nice. Like the Bay Area was known for being beautiful, if anything. And now, what the Democratic Party have done to it, terrible. On the 4th of August, we had in Mr. Peter Whittle. There he is. He's been on a number of times, a friend of the podcast, and he's always great, right? He's always got a number of bass takes.
Yeah,
I really like Peter Whittle
from New Culture Forum.
Yeah, he's the face of New Culture Forum. They've actually got a bit like Lotus. They've got quite. It's not just him anymore, is it? He's got a bunch of lads on there.
Yeah,
I think Connor's been on there. And anyway, I watch that sometimes. It's quite good. They're sort of doing a similar thing to us, adjacent to us in some ways. And Peter Whittle's Twitter account is also quite good quite often. Again, just being pretty based, saying stuff. On the 7th of August, again, came back with the Barbie thing.
You don't much to say on that, do you?
Well, I'll just tell people my take on it.
Okay, fair enough.
I just think the whole thing's a stupid embarrassment. I don't know. I don't want to sort of be too hardline on this, but there was a bit of a schism in the office about whether just some behind the scenes stuff for people. Some people in the office thought it was an interesting, good story. Carl and Connor and a few others, and some thought it was more or less indifferent to it, and some thought it was an embarrassment. Really, I was one of those. It's just a nonsense. Even if there is a sort of an angle there about it being it's actually secretly based or some crap, it's just like it's just nonsense. It's just a distraction, nothing more than that. And I don't know why we really as an organisation, spent time and energy on it. That's my take. You didn't hear me say anything about it at the time. I never tweeted anything about it one way or the other, but that is my feelings on it. So it came up again. It's not that deep. It's not that. It's certainly not important at all. Like the culture war stuff, I just don't, because like iDubbbz, I don't really know who iDubbbz is. I let a lot of this stuff pass me by. Like
well,
that AI
you've got to be in the scene for that.
Yeah.
And then if you're not,
like that AI girl, I'd completely forgotten about that. There's loads of stuff. Quite often, something in the news cycle come up, and it's someone that's like a really important influencer. They've got millions and millions of followers, and they've done or said something, and I'm like, I've never heard of this person. I feel like a bit of a boomer, but I don't mind. It's fine.
I think it depends on the influencer, right? Because if it's someone who's political or has done something interesting, like it's kind of cool. But when it's some guy who mostly makes like Minecraft videos, has said something that's a bit raunchy, it's like I couldn't give less for crap. I'm not watching Minecraft videos. I'm not 12 anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the thing with the Barbie. I'm not a girl. I was never a little girl. I don't care about Barbie on any level. So, like for example, in the news cycle today, and this is early December, we're talking about when this is being recorded. There's something about Destiny, and I'm vaguely aware of the name of Destiny. This person, this online influencer person, but I've never ever watched any of their content ever. I don't really know who they are. Right?
He's a debate bro.
Is he?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I don't think he ever leaves America. He just debates.
Well, the take I saw when I was scrolling through something or other is that he's a true moron. Like,
that doesn't narrow it down.
Like his general knowledge was laughably bad. I saw someone say he'd never heard of Franco, I assume General Francisco Franco, he didn't know the proper name for the United States of America. Stuff like that, like real sort of borderline retarded level. So anyway, these things. These things come up. I mean, well, surely, how can you be an adult at 30-something and not know that America is called the United States? How is that possible, you know? Anyway.
Just the way you put it was funny to me, sorry.
Yeah.
Like quite often someone will come up and I just, not only don't I know who they are, I've got no intention of finding out even.
Yeah.
You know? Like with this Barbie thing, it was quite a thing for a while in August, wasn't it? July and August. It was all over Twitter and the internet and people talking about it in all sorts of loads and loads of videos on YouTube got made by all sorts of people. And I just let it all wash over me. I just could not be less interested.
How do you feel about the notion that I've heard people use, unstoppable Kenergy?
It just came and went.
That's my full reaction to it.
Yeah.
Just that. Yeah, Ken and Kenergy and all that sort of thing. But then, you know, I'm like a history nerd, you know. I've not really watched hardly any of the Harry Potter films. I certainly haven't read any of the books. I've got no intention of doing that. You know, I'll be rereading Gibbon or something, or Charles Oman, or you know, I just haven't got time.
Yeah.
You know, when you actually read quite a lot, it's quite a time-consuming thing, right? You read loads, don't you? It's a time-consuming thing. You've got to pick and choose what you're going to read, what you're going to really spend your time on.
I made a choice back then because I made up, and when I was really young, I read the 4th Harry Potter, and then I went to Lord of the Rings, and I couldn't go back to Harry Potter again. Right. I know some people maybe hate me, but I mean, after Lord of the Rings, you can't go back to things like that. That's how I see it.
I love Harry Potter, the movies. I'm never reading the books, don't care. Yeah. But I will agree with you. If you didn't grow up with it, I don't know if there's much in it for a person.
Well, I was already in my early 20s, I must have been, I suppose, when the first book came out, something like that. I'm now a middle-aged man. It's like, no, I'm not going to go back and read the Harry Potter books. So there's nothing in it. It's no value to me, I'm afraid. I don't want to needlessly alienate some massive Harry Potter fans out there. But anyway, that's how I feel. I've got more important things to be reading, right? I need to reread some Socratic dialogues to make a bit of content for this or something, right? I'm not gonna delve into the subculture of Barbie.
All right,
got it. All right. Now I'll move on. And,
sorry to interrupt the video, but I thought I'd announce that we have a new line of merch. This is our aesthetics collection. So I was thinking that in the face of AI art debasing the very concept of art, actually we'd do something quite positive. So we commissioned a series of paintings that were actually really beautiful and could be something that we could present outside of politics. So for example, we have this magnificent painting of a ship weathering a storm, which I thought was just really nice. And we have, of course, a glorious, sort of surrealist, giant white tiger drinking from a lake. But also there are other things that are just kind of interesting, such as the chap lost in cyberspace, or something that I thought might, in time for Christmas, make a great present for your mum or something like that. A beautiful cat lounging on some clouds. Basically, we wanted to do some stuff that wasn't just political. So things that were just nice and beautiful and interesting, because that's also a part of the world we want to curate. So you can go over to shop.lotuses.com. Buying the merch is a really great way of supporting us and means that we can live past demonetization. And I'm sure they make great gifts for the folks as well.
What's the next thing? Vobes. On the 8th of August, we had in Mr. Richard Vobes, Vobesy. Now, I was on that one, and there we go, Vobes. Now, I do want to issue a slight bit of an apology or an explanation, because I was sort of slated to go on the podcast that day, and I decided that what I was going to do a bit about was sort of doomers, accelerationists, and boomer doomers. Like, don't be a boomer doomer, don't be a doomer in general. And I had no idea that Mr. Vobes is a tiny little bit that way inclined, or his thinking is that there's no point sort of voting particularly. You should take yourselves out and go to sort of rural communities and deal with the destruction of our civil society in that way. So when I was doing my bit, towards the end, we had not exactly crossed words, but we disagreed a little bit. And which was fine. It wasn't a problem.
There's no reason to apologize for that.
I
but
remember watching it. I didn't see it as hostile.
oh, good,
personally.
good.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I said to him, like, that wasn't meant to be any sort of personal attack on you. And he took it very well. I genuinely believe him when he said, oh, no, I didn't take it that way. Nonetheless, it could have looked like that we got him in for me to sort of do that to him. And that's absolutely not how it went. That's not what it happened. Because I think he's great. I think Vobes is great. I'd love to have him back on. So I don't think there was any sort of bad blood or anything like that, but I just did want to absolutely set the record straight that there's not even a hint of that's what was going on. And in fact, it was, I thought, quite a good exchange between me and him. I was saying, no, come on, we need to sort of, it is possible to sort of vote
I think you made a good point, because if on the one hand there are people who are criticizing government for being too interfering on the one hand, and on the other hand they say just go and live in communities, there's the obvious question that you raised. How do you think they're not going to interfere with you in these communities? Yeah. But I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah. Short of like paramilitaries being formed and actually been storming parliament and stuff, like, well, you've got to vote yourself out of it though, because you won't be left alone in your communes and things. So anyway, that was that. Do hope we can get Richard Vobes back on at some point. So there you go. What else? On the 11th, we had the lovely Freya India came in. There she is. I didn't actually end up. You were on it with Harry, right?
It was Harry, myself, and her.
So I only watched a few clips of that. I didn't really watch the whole thing. But how did that go? Was that all right?
It was a really good discussion, and she has really good things and insightful things to say about modern relations between women and men, and especially young people. And it was a really good podcast. And I remember that was the day with the lesbian Nana incident.
Oh,
the first incident. Yeah. So we had plenty of stuff to talk about.
All right. Cool. Well, let's see what else. On the 15th, there was an interesting bit where Dan did a segment about the nuking of Japan, a sort of a historical
current affairs segment.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Dan discusses if it's a good idea to nuke Japan.
Was it justified? Yeah, so obviously that's sort of a little bit in my wheelhouse, being sort of history themed and me being history nerd, and I'm fascinated, of course, by World War II and also by the war in the Pacific.
Yeah,
I have actually done quite a lot of reading about the war in the Pacific, about America versus Japan, and of course you can't look at any of that stuff without ending up having a decent look at all the politics and arguments around the using of the atom bomb in 45, in August 45. And so in the office behind the scenes earlier that day or the day before, Dan told me, I sit next to Dan, he was going to do it, and we sort of bounced a few ideas off each other, and it's a difficult thing. It's one of those arguments, it's one of those topics in history that whatever you say, whichever side of the argument you come down on, there's going to be a decent chunk of people that quite vehemently disagree with you. But I think he did quite well, to be perfectly honest, on it. My take on it, if anyone's interested, super briefly, it's just that it's one of those things where what people were thinking at the time is you have to take that into account. When you look back at it in retrospect, it's massively distorted.
Yeah.
Just look at what Truman said, his speech at the time. He said stuff like look into the camera and say, I'm prepared to destroy every single Japanese person. Almost. I'm barely paraphrasing.
Yeah, I know. That's just
right.
America back in World War II was a hell of a place.
Yeah. It was like we spent a lot of guys on Iwo Jima and Okinawa and stuff. And if I have to destroy every Japanese building and every person, then that's what's going to happen.
I get a surrender.
Yeah.
Let's get through the rest.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Do we need to go all the way up to? We're still doing an hour and a half total here.
No, it's just I thought we should move on a little bit.
All right. Fair enough. I've only got a few more left here to go through. On the 18th, we had Peter McElvenna in. He's also another very based gentleman. It was nice to speak to him a little bit, at least, behind the scenes in the office beforehand. He's always got some sort of very interesting takes. Do you remember particularly what he was either of you on the podcast with him that day?
I wasn't that day on the podcast.
I've worked with him a fair bit. He's a personal assistant to Lord Pearson, but also runs Hearts of Oak. And
of course, he's Hearts of Oak. Of course, he is, right?
yeah, he used to work a lot back in the UKIP days for everyone as well. And so he's got some proper expertise about like how things actually function.
Yeah, I remember him in the office behind the scenes talking about people were just throwing around ideas like we do, and him saying, "Actually, no, that that couldn't quite work because of this reality and things." Yeah. And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, no, fair enough, you're right there. Can't argue with that." So he's an interesting, absolutely got an interesting mind on him. Owen Jones lying again. I can't recall exactly what it was that time, but that's Jones's stock in trade, isn't it? Essentially,
That doesn't
lying.
sound like news. If he was sincere, it would be news.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
That would be noteworthy.
Yeah.
If he happened to be sincere at some point. On the 22nd, there was a piece all about rich men north of Richmond, which incidentally, very recently, again, at the beginning of December, on Twitter, I just happened to put, I don't think that's a very good song in hindsight, looking back at it a few months ago now. Largely, people seem to agree with me, but there was a small contingent on Twitter which very, very heavily disagreed with me, insisted that Oliver Anthony isn't actually a globalist Democrat shill. That it is a value as a rebellious song, but there you go. Father Calvin Robinson's a big fan. Who knew?
I don't think I was in the country at the time. Like I was in Russia or something, so this just completely missed me.
Yeah, he's It's from the South, and so it's like it's country music.
Yeah,
and he's moaning about the rich men north of Richmond, Virginia, the Yankees in the north, and them being rich. There are actually some pretty based lyrics in there, referencing just the destruction of American society, and I think he references Ghislaine Maxwell. No, who was the guy? Epstein, the Epstein Island and stuff like that. So I don't hate it at all. I think maybe the sentiment behind it is definitely got its heart in the right place. I just think the actual song isn't all that great. Anyway, next thing. On the 23rd, ex-MEP Mr. Godfrey Bloom came in. And I'm a really big fan of Bloom. I think he's great.
Bongo Land.
Yeah.
All the greats.
I love his worldview, his takes, how unapologetic he is. I was lucky enough, not in August, later, to do a one-on-one epops with him talking about World War One. And he really knows his stuff, really knows his onions. I mean, he's a type of historian. And he's just a great person to have an interview with. You know, when someone's just general knowledge is very, very, very deep.
Yes.
And they're just completely based, won't take any nonsense.
And he has a great sense of humor.
Yeah,
I remember because both times he was here, I was on the panel. He's very funny.
Yeah. He sort of doesn't care, who he might annoy. All right, one of the last things I'll mention is on the 28th, right at the end of August, Dr. Nima Parvini, aka the academic agent, came in. He's obviously good friends with Carl Benjamin, and as I understand it, we'd wanted him to come in from inception, and he'd sort of always said no for various reasons, but Carl eventually sort of wore him down. And I think like the weekend before, they'd been to the Shieldings thing, so they got him in, and he made a bit of extra content as well as not just the podcast. And he's always got interesting things to say. I don't personally necessarily agree with all his takes, but he's certainly interesting and largely, in my opinion, nearly always right about things, if not always. But they talked about Tony Blair, and it's hard to deny that Tony Blair is some sort of dark lord of global politics on some level. Well, the evidence is there that he pulls strings on sort of a global level. So that takes certainly I've got no qualms with. So yeah, go out and go back and check that out if you haven't already, if you're an AA fan. And I think Connor did a book club with him Was that all the content?
I think
we
on
did?
his book, The Prophets of Doom.
Prophets of Doom. Yeah.
If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to check out the merch store and see mugs like this. Upon the conduct of each depends the fate of all. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.